Good evening.
Good
Welcome to
evening.
America's
How are
Heroes
you?
Group. uh, Welcome to America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. I am your host, U.S. Army Combat Medic and Flight Surgeon Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. We have a special panelist tonight. I'm so excited about talking about this topic. You have been doing incredible work, but Lisa Batiste has actually working with a program called 15 White Coats, but it's part of her overall structure of what she does. But the 15 White Coats is determined to reinforce positive imagery in learning spaces worldwide. Uh, they have the iconic photos are used as an avenue to inspire the next generation of diverse doctors, lawyers, dentists, veterinarians, etc. So these are professionals that they are trying to inspire to become part of the working culture of our country. So she is the executive director of this program, and I am so glad to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. It's been an interesting journey thus far to come on with this organization who had just such an amazing lift. As you identified, there are 15 Tulane African American medical students who had an opportunity to do something significant. So they decided to go out to the Whitney Plantation in Edgar, Louisiana.
Yeah.
They took a photo and it went internationally viral. If you take a look at our website, so you'll see they've been on Kelly Clarkson, Good Morning America, just recently again on CBS with a live interview.
Now, you have an outstanding website. I went to take a look at it, and I was
Mm,
wow, wonderful.
Thank you, thank you. As I cringe a bit because I see all the imperfections, but thank you very much. I'm
Oh
glad
no.
it was informative.
Yeah, you're the ultimate artist. You know, they always criticize their own work the work the
That
most.
part, that part.
But it was really wonderful. Actually, give the website where people can go to take a look at it.
Sure, absolutely. We are at www.the15, that's 15 whitecoats.org. So www.the15whitecoats.org.
Oh, fantastic. So tell us about this, because you have a mission to develop scholarships and facilitate access, to culturally relevant literature to make sure that people are, inspired to go forward. So how do you do that? And what is the mechanism that you use?
So our broad-based vision is actually to ensure that there's culture in medicine, period, and that's through several different initiatives. I'll start with the one that's probably the most popular one, the one that has given us, I guess, more the most recent media attention. It's working with underrepresented people in medicine, and so it's across the board, whether by race or by gender or otherwise. And we have a two-phase application and a two-phase programming process. We have actually a process beginning in March, and any student that's open to apply should go to the website. On the very front page, it says learn more, sign up for our informational webinar that's on March 15th. Having said that, the Funding the Future Physicians program, which is powered by Genentech, uh, is aimed at increasing a student's ability to perform on the MCAT, their personal statements, understanding how to leverage better letters of recommendation, as well as helping them bridge the economic gap that they may currently have, and definitely when they apply and get into medical school. The application process actually aligns with the things that they would need to do for medical school. For instance, the first phase of the application process, it requires them to write a personal statement, the personal statement that they would actually submit for medical school. It also requires them to have letters of recommendation or technically evaluation. Letters come from professors or potentially physicians they may have shadowed or have a relationship with. We take a look at all of those things, identify those students who we believe would be able to be successful based upon certain markers in this intensive because it's a pretty intensive process. And we provide them with a one-way interview.
Mhm.
What I love about those one-way interviews is that our previous cohort records the questions for them, so they get to meet them informally.
Right.
Um, we review those, determine who progresses to this application phase 2, at which time they will be in a board style, so a team style interview process. That mimics the interview process for medical school. And the questions we ask are actually medical school entrance exam or entrance interview questions.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. And, and we're living in a very, very disruptive geopolitical climate right now,
Mhm.
without going into it much deeper.
Mhm.
And, so federal funding and all that. So you're really existing on donations, right? From, uh,
That's correct. Donations, corporate funding, but even that is going to be challenged because of the current climate.
Mhm.
What we strive to do is to ensure that we are as stable as possible to make sure that we can continue to work the work. But it is important. We have a stratosphere, like a whole ladder of giving of as small as $25. We ask, if you can do $25 on a reoccurring basis, that would be great, because that $25 allows us to provide, another one of our programs, the Resilient Readers Book Club,
Mhm.
where we give away book boxes of books that are culturally relevant. That program also, which is going to be fully launched in the fall, also allows classroom teachers to sign up for virtual reading engagement with our volunteer readers. So the students are seeing or having books that have people that look like them.
Yes.
And then when scheduled, they'll have someone read to them that looks like them, that has a white coat on, or some other professional, or possibly even undergraduate students who will participate, and medical students who participate in this volunteer activity. But $25 would give the teachers the iconic poster in their classroom for free.
Mhm.
If you say, listen, I can give $50 and I want to wait for you to utilize that to provide a book box. Book boxes are only $400, and we ship them directly to the classroom wherever, all over the country. Matter of fact, if you want to send it overseas, we'll send it there as well.
Ah,
Um, but
wow.
it's a beautiful program.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I really want to go to that website. First of all, I'm going to make a commitment myself and say I'm going to be donating something to your organization. When I was going through medical school, you
Mhm.
always had to go through the adversity of a cultural divide.
Mhm.
As you were going through training and being recognized as being human first before you even be recognized as a
Yeah.
professional. Uh, so those things that were things that myself and a lot of my counterparts and peers actually went through. I know there's going to be the meeting for the National Medical Association in Chicago in in June of this year,
Mhm.
2025. But it's something that those people who are in medicine right now, all across the country, need to hear. They need to hear about this.
Absolutely. And we need to have volunteer physicians who,
Mhm,
an hour a month,
mhm,
where they sit and chat with, and I say chat with, but guide, because one of the biggest hurdles for these students is, the imposter syndrome. And,
mhm.
it's
Yeah.
funny because I've spoken to a few physicians who, are seasoned physicians, and they say they still struggle with that at times. And it's
Mhm.
important, especially for our students, for us to make that make sense for them. And the gap is genuinely having that consistent voice, that consistent mentorship that says, no, yes, you can.
Yes.
This is a hurdle, but it's not insurmountable. So that's definitely important. One of the ways that we're trying to also motivate that engagement is through our HBCU Tether tour.
Mhm.
We'll be visiting 20 historically Black colleges and universities starting on March 15th. The kickoff is at Dillard University here in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yes.
And we'll be moving forward from there to cover 20 other universities. And the aim is to engage with STEM students as well as neighboring secondary school students. We'll be giving them Resilient Reads book boxes. We'll be reading to them out loud, face to face, encouraging them to, as they move through elementary, middle school, and start making decisions in high school to, apply to their neighborhood HBCU and, obtain their education there. Dr. Lede graduated with a double major from the Southern University in,
Oh, yes.
in biology and chemistry.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and one of the people that I always admired and esteemed was Ernest Everett Just, the most published biologist ever. But I went to Howard University. I had to, state that up front.
That's okay. Listen, we currently have a HU graduate here at the 50 White Coats, and she reminds us regularly because I graduated from Southern and
Southern, yes.
Yeah, focused in OChem, but yes.
When I talk about Hampton when my sister went, but
listen, I'm not getting in that dust with you. I'm not doing
no.
that.
Okay, got you.
But yes, no, it's important. It's important work, and it's important that we have that leadership, and they can have beacons and know that they have resources, through our organization to help encourage and mentor and give, guidance. And we're, moving through and building programs that work for minority students or underrepresented students.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's one of the things that, in order to have a democracy, you have to have a public square, right? A place where you have free debate and discussion, and you can have public debates, and then, also freedom of speech. And then you also need to be able to have the power to vote people in and out of power in a fair and free election. And then you need to focus on minorities. Those are the three foundational things in any democracy, in an intact judicial system that makes sure that balance is protected and stays in place. So we're being threatened right now, I think, in all of those fronts. And that's really goes more towards a dictatorial kind of view of life. But we have to sort of resist that. I think it really brings into focus more and more why this is so important. We had over 350 African American hospitals in this country about 30 years ago. We're down to 0. We have none now.
Yeah, it's very disconcerting what is happening at this time. I can tell you that personally, I can't speak for the organization as a whole, but my guidance has been to focus on those things that are working for us, to get the outcomes that we're seeking. I'm not, burying my head in the sand by any means, but what I am doing is making sure that I focus on those avenues that allow us to get the outcomes that we seek. I definitely understand where the closed doors are because you have to look to see where they're open, right?
That's right.
But once I understand where the doors open, that's where I spend my energy because these students need that type of laser focus.
Yeah.
And we focus on the opportunity. We focus, again, it's not discounting because you have to understand, the game board. I think Kendrick Lamar probably did a really good job at displaying that on this past Sunday. But you have to understand the game board that you're playing on, definitely. But I want to just emphasize we really focus on where the doors are open, maximizing those opportunities, so that way we can do the work of getting these students moving forward. Because at the end of the day, there's no amount of conversation about the larger issues that will stimulate the movement, the daily movement, what needs to happen. And hopefully there's a meeting space where it's like, oh, okay. So you stayed there, boots on the ground, making sure that the work was done. while this other work, which is absolutely still important, um, was being discussed and considered, and allowing more avenues to be open so we can continue to do the work that we're doing.
Yeah, yeah, because maybe you can go into a little bit more, because there's some, educational barriers that, underrepresented students face, in medical education. But there's, also the, the potential for having a mentor, and why that mentorship role, and why, people like myself, have gone through medicine training. Why is it so important for us to get involved in mentorship? And what does it do for these students?
It's a great question. I'll
Mhm,
think I'll start with something you alluded to at the beginning of your question as you were introducing it. In
mhm,
terms of the some of the challenges, I think by and large our students are hardworking. They put in the effort,
mhm,
but I this is how I describe it. I think all of underrepresented people, for the most part, have a social critical thinking process
mhm,
that is clear and evident because you understand that you need to be in a safe space. Overlapping that into knowledge acquisition sometimes is a bit challenging, and
mhm,
here's what I mean. Um, these students work really hard to pass an exam, and they will put in the effort. The gap is that passing that exam and knowledge acquisition is something that they were not taught. And this is a personal, and of course, this is not absolute and across the board everywhere, but by and large, that's the largest issue that we're seeing. I'd like to reference my mentor, Dr. Sandra McGuire, and she's
mhm,
written two books, Teach
mhm,
Yourself How to Learn and Teach Your
mhm,
Students How to Learn. And basically, the book is anchored in how to effort through knowledge acquisition. I know that her methodologies work. I've,
mhm,
been with her through several research studies, but the reason
mhm,
why I bring this up is because we leverage that with someone who's also been under her tutorship, who provides the 4.5 week live in phase one. I mentioned to you earlier, we have 2 phases in application and 2 phases in programming. So phase one is a 4.5 week focus on the content area on the MCAT that most of our students uh, have challenges in. And so those challenges um, are very specific in terms of content. So I think it's sections one, two, and maybe three.
mhm,
But at the end of the day, the person that delivers, the group that delivers for us, focuses on that content as well as the high yield strategy engagement that is that correlates with that critical thinking piece that I was talking about, how to overlap that, how to actually uh, process information from a knowledge acquisition standpoint as opposed to an end result for an exam.
mhm,
Now, why is all of that important? Because cultivating the mind to be able to continue to practice the
mhm.
strategies that are provided. Um, I mean, they've been practicing these other things for, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years. So this intensive causes them to think a little differently. And what we've seen is that 100% of the students in our most recent cohort, which is the second cohort, 100% of them has seen score increases, right?
Mm, yeah.
72% of them has met the minimum threshold and is on target to make between a 508 and a 513, 516
Mhm.
on the MCAT, which is
Competitive.
significant.
Mhm, mhm,
The mentorship, which is a part of phase two, why it's important, because during this phase, they have more personalized but independent leveraging of the resources that we provide them.
mhm,
In fact, they have to then create some of their own, what we were calling Q test. They also are still going through and revising, doing some of their final revisions on their personal statements. They are also going through and trying to ensure that they're building the proper relationships and engagement with their recommenders, because those letters are extremely important. And sometimes
Mhm.
it's the difference between these students getting in and not getting in.
Yeah.
And so that mentorship allows them to build relationships and potentially, in best case scenario, afford them to know the student well enough to write letters of recommendation, strong, stellar letters of recommendations for these students.
Yes, that's a very extremely well said. And I was thinking about the process I went through when I was going through, the application process and, applying to medical schools. And one of the things was looking at those mentors I had around me. So the people who were teaching me physiology and, anatomy and biochemistry, and
Mm,
these were African American scholars,
mhm.
zoology, Geraldine Twitty and Franklin R. Ampe. Those are my people. And, Anderson, Dr. Anderson.
Yeah.
I saw that it was possible for me to function in this realm, and to actually think and be, appraised. They were tough.
Mhm. They were tough, but they told you were brilliant.
Ah,
Whether directly or indirect, they told you were brilliant.
yes, you've got this.
You've got this. That is the gap that
Mhm.
these students, even unfortunately, even in our PBIs and HBCUs, and obviously probably a more so than not in PWI, it's an unfortunate thing, but that need for those the need that these students have for that uh, space to be filled is tremendous. Their latent learning
Mhm.
has come from a totally different societal space that sometimes I have to giggle. I was talking to one of my assistants today, and I think I'd seen this somewhere on TikTok or somewhere. I said, when you answer the phone, I said, what would you do? And she did this. She said, why? I said, because I do this. And so we had a good laugh about that. The way that we think about things in the
Mhm.
simplest things, particularly in latent learning,
Yes.
is different. And that latent learning caused us to have skill sets from emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
navigation, negotiation, and our sense of belongingness in a group and
Yes.
the normality of that.
Mhm.
Uh, these students feel like, well, I don't want to expose where I need help because I'm going to look like I don't know or I'm dumb or all these things. And then when they're in a room with people who have resumes
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
that
I remember, one time, this is really a story this
Mhm,
jogged in my memory, but it was Dr. Winston Anderson. He taught, electron microscopy and
mhm,
basic sciences at Howard. And I went back to visit because I used to go back and visit my professors and say hello, when I was in town. And
mhm.
I went to his office and I said, "Hi, Dr. Anderson, how are you?" And he said, "Oh, great!" And so he was really happy to see me. And then he pulled his desk drawer out and he pulled out one of my exams. And he said, "I keep this in my desk drawer." And he said, "You know why?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Because I always want to realize how much I can get out of my students."
Oh, wow. How
And it just
special
hit me.
is
I was like,
that?
"Oh my goodness!" It was like,
Oh, how special is that? No, that's special.
and so this is something that that love and the caring from those academic institutions, the
Mhm,
HBCUs,
mhm,
is immeasurable. I just have to say that. But one of the things also is that you would tell me about some of the success stories that people are actually starting to get scores that are higher and they're able to move forward.
mhm.
But what is your vision for the future funding of the future physicians and the 15 white coats? Because that's just really critical, especially right now.
So I'll speak about it as an organization. Our hope is to continue to stimulate and increase the number of underrepresented people that are entering into medical school,
Mhm.
not merely by preparation, but also filling economic gaps. It costs between $5,000 and $10,000 to get prepped and apply and go through secondaries and pay for application fees and all those things. We pay for all of that,
Oh,
for those
I see.
students. And
Yeah.
so it costs a lot of money, and underrepresented people, obviously, there's an alignment in this country as it relates to, economic disparities, in that particular group. And so
Mhm.
we're not only bridging academic gaps, but very significantly, we're bridging economic gaps with those demographic of students. And our hope is to be able to make a significant impact,
Mhm.
in terms of the number of students that are accepted into medical school and successfully traverse through medical school. Um, and Also, increase the pipeline of students that are entering into HBCUs.
Yes, yes.
So those, yes, HBC universities are excellent, and it does matter,
Yep.
absolutely. And so, uh, our hope is to be able to stimulate that interest and love
Yes,
through reading and the
yes.
Readers Book Club.
Yes, and we have to have you back on. I really, we need to have you back on to talk about this. It's critically important, especially now with the healthcare implications from public health to everything that's going on right now. But I know that you are a U.S. Air Force veteran.
Yes,
And
I am.
yes, and
Disabled vet, actually, yes.
yes, and this is something important for the veterans to hear too, because many of
Mhm.
them right now are in medical units and don't know which direction they're moving in. But this is a viable option. You can make it, and a lot of people don't have
Yes.
that confidence, but they need to know it. So
Yes.
I'm going to leave it there, but we are
Thank you
going to
so
have
much
you
for
back
having
on. So
me.
don't go anywhere too far. I know you're down in Louisiana, but you sent us your snow too. We tried to donate that to you from Chicago, but now it's coming
We
back.
had 8 inches.